राम कृष्ण नाम। धर्म कर्म लक्ष्मी योगी महादेवी महेश्वर मोक्ष क्षेम सर्वदेव देवी श्री योगेश्वर दुर्गा शिव सत्य श्रेष्ठ श्रेय श्रेयाधीश्वर ज्ञानी स्थूल महाशून्य राम कृष्ण बोधीश्वर शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। काला काल महाकाल काली श्यामा नित्य काल सत्य सत्य परम सत्य देव श्री महेश्वास शंख चक्र गदा पद्मधारी श्रीनारायण आदिदेव राम कृष्ण सर्वदेवधीश्वर शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। विश्वपति लक्ष्मीपति प्रजापति मानेश्वर शीतला विमला स्निग्धा शारदा श्री अधीश्वर सर्वदेव देवी रूप सर्वसिद्धि परायण राम कृष्ण परब्रह्म नित्यानित्य सोमेश्वर शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। रूप सीमा सीम लीला नित्य सुरेश्वर अर्थानार्थ महादेव सत्यदेव भूतेश्वर निद्रा लज्जा श्रद्धा स्तुति यज्ञ कर्म विद्यमान नित्य सत्य राम कृष्ण एकमेव द्वितीयम् शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। सर्वमोह मुक्त शुद्ध सत्य प्रेम स्थित तर्क युक्ति ऊर्ध्वमुक्त बुद्धिजित इंद्रिय कामिनी कांचन जित निर्विकार महेश्वर शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। पतित पावन देव शारदा श्री प्राणनाथ जगत पिता श्रीमान अधमे अभयस्थान रक्षा दीक्षा सर्वदाता सर्वजीवयभिप्रेत निर्विकल्पे चित्तस्थित ब्रह्मलोकधीश्वर शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। दर्शने नित्य ध्यान मनने मुक्ति लाभ स्मरणे जन्म शुद्ध निर्भरे अमीय लाभ युगले अभिन्न हृदि राम कृष्ण सारदा प्रेम योगे मुक्ति मोक्षे धन्य श्री वसुंधरा शिव शिव महाशिव शिव राम कृष्ण नाम। ब्रह्मा विष्णु सर्वदेव राम कृष्ण दीप्तनाम कार्तिकेय गणपति विश्वकर्मा विश्वमान युगदेव राम कृष्ण राम कृष्ण ब्रह्मनाम शिव शिव महा।
Pranams and namaskars. Welcome to our first summer virtual retreat of 2021. We are excited to have 4 guest Swamijis in today's session, beginning with Swami Satyamayanandaji sharing his thoughts on Bhagwan Buddha, followed by talk on Adi Shankaracharya by Swami Isha Dhyananandaji, and lastly, talk on Swami Vivekananda by Swami Vimohanandaji. There will be a 10-minute Q&A followed by devotional rendition by Swami Nirakaranandaji after each talk. Swami Vardhanandaji will conclude with closing remarks. Some housekeeping reminders. This Zoom session will be recorded If possible, please keep your videos on so Swamijis can see you. Also, the audience will be muted throughout the session. During the talk, if you have any questions for Swamijis, we encourage you to type it in the chat box of your Zoom. The speaker Swamiji will try and address as many questions as possible in the given time allotted for Q&A. Thank you and hope you enjoy this session. We will now start with an introduction by Swami Ishatmanandaji, Swami in charge of the Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago.
Namaskar, dear devotees, friends, and my most dear monastic brothers. I'm so happy to see you over here. And as our tradition, let us begin the program with the Pranam mantra of Thakur Ma and Swamiji. All of us, we know it, and I will chant on your behalf. You can also repeat with me. Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma sarubhine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Jananim saradam devim Ramakrishnam jagat gurum Padapadme tayo sritva pranamami muhurmuhu Namastri yatirajaya Vivekananda Surai Satchit Sukha Sarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Hari Om. This month, the month of May, that we have celebrated the thrice blessed day of the Lord Buddha, and also we have celebrated the Shankara Jayanti. The both great leaders, Lord Buddha and Shankara, a few years before Jesus and after Jesus, they have led the whole humanity towards emancipation in their own way. The wisdom that they have given to us, and that is still continuing in the human society, and it is preserved in our holy books. Now, three of our Swamis, they will be speaking. One, Swami Satyamayanandaji on Lord Buddha and his philosophy and how he is taking us or the whole humanity towards enlightenment. Then next will come our Swami Ishadhyananandaji. I don't see him here. Ishadhyana must be here. Ishadhyana, okay. Ishadhyana, yeah, Ishadhyananda, I could see him, right. The Ishadhyanananda, he will be speaking on the Shankara. We always say Shankara is Adi Shankara Acharya. And see, Ishadhyanananda is sitting at the back. There's a statue of Adi Shankaracharya. So that is a beautiful way he is sitting. And we will listen from him about the philosophy of Adi Shankaracharya. Then in the modern time, another great saint has come, and he is the combination of heart and head. His heart is like the Buddha, and his head is like the Shankaracharya. That is Swami Vivekananda. And that will be Swami Vimohanandaji will be speaking on that. In between, when they speak, then another Swami, he will be giving us the beautiful music, Swami Nirakaranandaji, and he will sing the songs on. So it will be a beautiful compact program. And for coming 2 hours, we'll be engaged in that. Forget about all other things. Put off your all telephone and concentrate on this. And let us listen to the Swamis, that they have lived their life, studied, and then practiced whatever they're going to say. So I welcome you, Swami Satyamayananda ji. I welcome Swami Vivekananda ji, and they're all my juniors. So, but still, I'm so proud that they have. And one secret I will tell you: these two Swami, Satyamayananda and Vivekananda, they are from background of Advaita Ashram, Calcutta, where I was also there. So we can say that Advaita brotherhood. So we'll be thinking in that way. So, and also I welcome heartily, very junior, but very, very knowledgeable, we should say, Ishad Dhyanananda. So these three Swamis and Nirakarananda ji, heartily welcome. Welcome our devotees, our friends. Without you, nothing will be there. So your presence always encourages us. Please, let your camera be on, but as they will be always telling, your microphone should be put off, so we can see you, and you can also see us, but we will listen only to the Swamis. So you can see, that many of you must be looking at the picture that is shown, and the pujas at the background. There's two birds are sitting over there. That is the indication. The lower bird is we, the Jivatma, and our goal is to become the upper bird, which is Brahman. Thank you, friends. And Puja, please take up. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our first speaker today is Swami Satyamayananda ji. Swami Satyamayananda ji is the Assistant Minister at the Vedanta Society of Southern California since December 2018. He became a member of the Ramakrishna Order at Advaita Ashram, Kolkata in 1988. An initiated disciple of Swami Bhuteshananda ji, he served in various capacities at Advaita Ashram. In 2008, he joined the training center at Belur Math as an Acharya. In 2010, the Swamiji was posted to Advaita Ashram Mayavati to serve as editor of Prabuddha Bharata, an English language magazine of the Ramakrishna Order. Swamiji was appointed as the secretary of the Ramakrishna Mission Ashrama Kanpur in 2014. Swami Satyamayananda ji is our first speaker today and will speak on Bhagavan Buddha. Please welcome Swami Satyamayananda ji.
Om Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. The three gems of Buddhism. I go to seek refuge in the Buddha. I go to seek refuge in the Dharma. I go to seek refuge in the Sangha. I'm going to speak on what Swami Ishatmananda mentioned, the thrice blessed day. And I feel for me, it's like more like a reunion, as you know, we all were together. And yes, so I'm going to speak about Buddha's influence on our lives and on the world. So Swami Vivekananda says he was the greatest man that was ever born. And even a conservative study like the Encyclopedia of Religions echoes those words. All our lives, we have seen, is layered by our thoughts and words and deeds which have made us. Each life is unique. We have gone through endless sufferings. We are here today, the result of all our stories, all our small individual stories have made us into this story that we have here. But our stories are always embedded in culture, in civilization, in a nation. So these stories of ours are embedded in a wider and wider concentric circles that constantly interact. There comes a time in the life of the world, a story that is so powerful, it changes all our stories. It changes the stories of the culture. It changes the stories of civilizations. It changes the stories of nations. It changes the world's stories. That is the story of Bhagavan Buddha. In North India, there were 16 Mahajanapadas, called oligarchies. In the North India, there was the oligarchy of Kosala. There were two vassal kingdoms of the Shakyas and the Kolyas on either side of a river. Buddha was born, as they say, in 568 before Common Era. This is also called the axial age, where most of the world's philosophies had become established and which we also see current today. The king, or rather the chieftain of the vassal state of Shakyas was Shuddhodhana. He had married two sisters of the Kolya clans. One was Mahamaya or Maya, and the other was Prajapati. This was the time when we see there was relative, you can say, ease and peace in the kingdoms. When Buddha's mother, Mahamaya, was pregnant, she was going to her father's place, which was customary, to give birth to the child. On the way, she delivered the child in the groves of Lumbini, which is now in Nepal. She had a vision or dream of a white elephant holding a lotus flower. And the lotus flower was deposited into her and the elephant entered into her. She told the king, Shuddhodhana, what had transpired. The king, he called in his soothsayers and saints and astrologers to interpret the dream. And they said, the world is waiting for such a great soul to be born. He will be a great emperor. He will rule people's hearts. And the king was mighty pleased. When the royal entourage, after she had given birth to Buddha, the child, was brought to the palace, once again the sages and the astrologers came and checked the signs of the body, and they were ecstatic. These were all auspicious signs. This child was named Siddhartha, one who has attained his aim. And since he was from the clan, the ancient lineage of Gautama, he was called Siddhartha Gautama. 7 days after the child was born, a sage called Asita Kaladevana, he came and began weeping when he saw the child. The king was alarmed. So what happened? He says, "O king, I am weeping for myself, For I will not be able to see this child's future greatness. I will not be able to hear his voice. He will be the ruler of people's hearts and minds. He will be a great force in the world. And that is the reason why I'm weeping. He will not be a king in the ordinary sense. He will be the king in the real sense of the term. He will be a monk. And Shuddhodana became even more alarmed. He wanted a successor. And the successor, if it's going to be a monk, everything is going to crash down. So the king's fright was compounded by grief. The whole kingdom fell into grief because the next day, his mother, Maya, she passed away. He was brought up by his aunt, who was Prajapati. He grew up as a king, as a warrior. He was trained in the philosophies, in the science of warfare. He was also well read in the ancient literature, secular and spiritual. He was, as it were, called the Shakya Muni, the sage of the Sakyas, or Sakya Singha, the sage, the lion of the Sakyas. His life, as we know, a young prince, was ordinarily a kind of a repeat story of many such princes all over the world. But his innate spirituality used to come out in everything he did. He was noble in his bearings. He was compassionate. And even as a young child, one time when he was 9 years old, there was an annual harvesting festival. And it was a huge, you can say, occasion. People had gathered there, and they found later the child, Siddhartha, sitting quietly in a grove, deeply absorbed and meditating. The biographers say that this was his first taste of samadhi. He married a Koliya princess called Yashodhara, and he had a son called Rahula. He married when he was 16. Contrary to all the biographers, Yashodhara was highly intelligent, she was compassionate, and she, of the royal blood, used to go secretly in the houses of the poor and dispossessed and help them. In fact, Buddha, he spied her one day helping the poor, and this was another awakening for him. And we know the overly dramatized story of Buddha, how when he was, you can say, enclosed in that palace, the world and all its din and suffering were kept away from him. But he one day left the palace and he saw an old man, a sick man, and a dead man. And that awakened him to the realities of life. There is suffering. Later on, he said, there are 4 noble truths, Chatvari Arya Satyani. There is suffering. It is possible to stop suffering. There is the way to stop suffering. So, and then there is the marga, the Ashtanga marga, Ashtangika marga, the 8-fold path. So this was his formulation of life. As we know that he one day, he left the palace to become a monk. But even before that, he had discussed this with his wife, Yashodhara. And amazingly, she had encouraged him. She understood suffering. She wanted also to find a solution to the world's suffering. And she had 3 dreams about Buddha leaving her, leaving the palace and becoming a monk. He had discussed with his wife, he had discussed his aim also with his mother and father. They tried to discourage him, but only Yashodhara encouraged him. And one day, one night, it was that same night in Vaishaka, which is called May and April, when he was born on that full moon. Last time he looked at his wife and his son, and then he left. Yashodhara had left his riding clothes and his horse ready. He wore them and he went. He first met his guru, Alara Kalama, and he practiced the disciplines which were prescribed. This teacher was in an ashram which was training hundreds of monks into yoga. Buddha, in 1 month, he attained those states of high concentrations. After all this practices of 1 month, you must understand that he was not doing this for himself. He wanted to solve the people's worlds, the people's wars and people's sufferings and people's worries. He left, and then for 6 long years, he traveled the whole, you can say, plains of North India, especially in the district of Magadha, which is now Bihar. Went about practicing his spiritual disciplines, searching out teachers, learning from them. Finally, he gave up all pursuits and then fell back on himself, on his own efforts. In the meantime, he had met 5 companions, and they had deserted him because he had broken the vow of not eating. So when he reached a grove in what is called Gaya, which is also now called Bodha Gaya, he sat down and with those famous words, Yasane shishyatu me shariram tvagastimansam pralayan suyatu. Let my body dry up on the seat. Let my flesh and bones and everything wither away. I will not move from the seat until I attain enlightenment, which is difficult in millions of cycles of Brahma. Bahukalpa durlabham. And then with that resolve, that great resolve, he sat down and he finally attained that state. But before he did, that last temptation called that great tempter, Mara, comes. And the story goes that Mara comes with his 5 daughters first. He sends his 5 daughters. The 5 daughters represent the 5 great elements: earth, air, fire, water, and earth. So these are the subtle perceptions that arise before the yogi. And these are the best forms Prakriti or nature can throw at you in order to divert you from your aim. If the yogi conquers that, then that yogi becomes free. So the first daughter stepped up, space, and through his Vipassana clear sight, He saw through her, but that daughter, she transformed herself into space. The space curled, whirled, and expanded into multiple dimensions. Thunder and lightning flashed in that space. There was darkness and sound. Buddha was silent. Space went away. Air comes, and she brings in a huge hurricane, uprooting trees and mountains and throwing it at Buddha. Buddha kept quiet and silent and watched through the whole illusion. She left. Then comes, you can say, fire. A fire burnt down the forest around Buddha, and the fire almost came to where he was sitting. Yet Buddha was unmoved. Fire departed. Then comes water, and she lashes the whole oceans and rivers into a mighty flood. Yet Buddha was unafraid. She leaves. And then comes earth. Earth comes, and there's a huge earthquakes and loud noises. She also leaves defeated. After this yogi conquers the 5 elements, then we see Mara emerging out. So Buddha was sitting with his eyes closed. He saw his own reflection outside. And there's a fascinating dialogue that happens there. Buddha understands that this reflection of his is an illusion. The illusion, Mara says, you go where no one else has gone. Will you take me along? Buddha says, finally, I have met you. You are an illusion. You will not build this house, that is his body, anymore. The illusion says, but I am your home. I am your body. You live in me. Buddha says, oh, you God of my false self, you are pure illusion. You do not exist. And Buddha banishes that illusion through his insight. That illusion, which had a form of Buddha, now changes into Mara. He sits down, naked, wailing, bent. With a loud cry, he disappears. Buddha then becomes the Buddha. He attains enlightenment. The whole nature was pleased. The earth and the skies and the waters and everything celebrated this event, as it were. This was the second blessed day. This was the same day that he was born. And for the rest of his life, since when he was 32 or 33, till he was 80, he lived and traveled and preached that 4 noble truths all over North India. This was his mission, and he was open to all the people. Swami Vivekananda says he was the sanest man that was ever born. He was also the breaker of all the chains of suffering. He lived as a free soul. He had attained, when he was with his first guru, he had attained wondrous serenity, the samadhi called wondrous serenity. He had then applied himself, and he had attained the realm of limitless space. That limitless space is the limitless space of consciousness, which was himself. He lived as a Jivan Mukta, lived and worked and preached. And his doctrines were simple. right speech, right resolve, right living, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And this was his message to the world. At Kushinara, a lay disciple called Chanda had served him food which consisted of a poisonous variety of mushrooms, unfortunately. After Buddha had partaken of that food, he told his disciple Chanda, don't serve this to any of the other bhikkhus, bury it down there. And he tells Ananda, there are two meals that the Tathagata, the one who has gone beyond, really appreciated in his whole life. The one before he attained enlightenment, when Sujata, a young girl, served him porridge. And then the second meal is this Chanda's meal that is going to release him now from the bondage, final bondage of the body. So he lay down with that famous posture with his head on his arms, facing north. He's lying down, and he was in the grove of sal trees. People were weeping, his disciples were weeping. And he said, why do you weep? I have given you the message of strength. And with those famous words, Atma Divo Bhava, be a light unto yourself. And Buddha entered Parinirvana. The whole earth shook. The trees shed their blossoms. The world, as it were, moaned. This was the third blessed day. He entered Parinirvana on that same day, which he was born and which he attained enlightenment. This is the three blessed day. This is the story of the Buddha. It's a great story. Like I said, this story becomes the story of the world. It changed culture, it changed civilization, it changed humans. And it is now become our story. And this is a great story. If we can live our life in tune with this great story, we too will transcend realm of suffering and pain and attain to that stage of nirvana. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Swamiji. We have a few questions from the audience. First question is from Mahavir Ketavar. Revered Maharaj, our scriptures like Srimad Bhagavat talk about 24 incarnations of God, but based on the word of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda, Lord Buddha, Jesus Christ, Chaitanya, and Sri Ramakrishna are to be considered as God incarnates in the modern times. What are your thoughts about this? How can the modern educated person have firm conviction about this?
Well, as you know, Hinduism is a collection of many, you can say, lines of thought, spiritual thought. Why do you think that Bhagavatam is the only line of philosophic thought in the world, in India? We have the Dasha avatars, according to the Vaishnavas. We have the 24 avatars. Sri Ramakrishna himself, in one, you can say, teachings in the great master, we find he's going around with Arjuna and he tells Arjuna, look at that tree which is full of grapes. The wine are full of grapes, black grapes. So he's saying, yes, this whole tree is full of such grapes. So Sri Ramakrishna says, Krishna tells Arjuna, go closer and see. There are bunches of Krishna hanging on the tree of Brahman. There are millions and millions of avatars, millions and millions of Krishna. Why do you look at one Krishna? So we have various doctrines of avatars. Some say there's 10, some say there are 24. Sri Ramakrishna himself said there have been many incarnations. So the idea is, as the Bhagavad Gita says, yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam, wherever you see a great power elevating humankind and working for them, know them to be born of my own power. So this is what you need to take. Don't get confused about avatars. And moreover, Swami Shardananda in his great master also speaks about, in fact, all of us in a way are avatars. We have descended from our own nature into this realm of ignorance. And our job is to go back. Avatar means avatarana, to come down, to descend. So we have descended from our nature. Let's go back. And then you find these people whom you mentioned, they were great souls. Like Sri Ramakrishna says, they are huge ships that can ferry thousands and thousands of souls. You and me can't even ferry one person. We cannot ferry ourselves. We are like that flimsy, you can say, stalk of a banana. You know? A bird sits on it and it will sink. So we go to those souls which have the power to take us across the oceans of the world. This is the power of God. You see, there is that many incarnations. It has to be. You cannot stop at one incarnation. Let there be many. And as Swamiji says, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, truth is one, sages call it various names. The world has seen infinite number of incarnations. You think the world is so small, it happened yesterday? It's millions and millions and millions of years old. Billions. Religion, organized religion is just a new kid in town. What were people doing all these years? So we had a theory of the first incarnation was a fish, Matsya, then a tortoise, and then a boar, and then a dwarf, then a half lion, half man, and then we come straight down to one of the last 10 incarnations, of ninth incarnation called the Buddha. So here also we see a gradual evolution. So these are broad areas that have been given to us. There have been many, many, many incarnations. Thank you.
The next question is from Charles Ferdinand. Did Swamiji think that Buddha was greater than Thakur?
Why do you put thoughts in Swamiji's mind and put it in his mouth? What did he think? When he was saying he was the greatest man as ever born. And for Sri Ramakrishna, he says, Avatara Varisthaya. Okay, so take it like that. Yes.
Next question is from Pushpita. Pranam Swamiji, if you can share a little more about Buddha's Guru, it will be great.
Buddha's what?
Guru.
Oh,
Guru.
he had various gurus. He never had one guru. The first guru was Alara Kalama, and then he had a series of gurus. But he became the guru of the world. See, all incarnations have to undertake a spiritual discipline with the help of other gurus. The reason why Swami Shardananda says is, it's called protecting the Maryada, protecting the traditions, the ancient traditions. If Sri Ramakrishna would not have learned his knowledge from his gurus, those ancient traditions would have collapsed. So in order to keep that Maryada, that tradition, that glory of the tradition, one has to go through these tradition. So this is what is. So he had, and then he himself becomes a guru. So there it is.
Thank you, Swamiji. Those are all the questions. We are out of time. We'll move on to the next program. Pooja, take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji, for that beautiful rendition on Bhagwan Buddha. And thank you to all the participants who have asked questions. Our next speaker actually is Swami Nirakaranandaji. Swami Nirakaranandaji hails from Argentina and became interested in Vedanta when he was a student there. He became a frequent visitor of the Ramakrishna Ashrama of Buenos Aires and later traveled to Hyderabad, India to receive initiation from Swami Ranganathanandaji Maharaj. He joined the Ramakrishna order in England in 1993. He completed formal brahmachari training period at Belur Math and received monastic vows in 2006. Swamiji has served the organization at Mysuru Center, India for 4 years before he was sent to Vedanta Society of St. Louis in 2007. Swami Nirakaranandaji is trained in the formal worship in the tradition of Ramakrishna Mission and is known for his devotional rendition. Swamiji will share devotional music after each talk today. Please welcome Swami Nirakaranandaji.
Thank you, Pooja. My pranams to revered Swami Ishatmanandaji and to all the other Swamijis. And I'm very happy to join this retreat, to have been invited to take part. And I want to tell you, this first time I am talking with you from this spot, but this is my spot to listen to the Swamijis, and I will go to our shrine to sing the songs. I won't be able to see you or hear you, but that is the arrangement. It will be better for our sound. We have tested that this is the best arrangement. So now I will mute this. I will go to the shrine and unmute it. And the next time we'll do this for Shankara, it will be more easy. I don't have to sit here and talk. I'll straight go there and wait for the signal, okay? Thank you.
They were controlling the mute.
Okay, now it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to mention that I was going to sing all the songs in the Indian languages, and Swami Shatmanandaji, he had a nice idea that why don't you sing one song in English and then one song in Sanskrit or whatever the language, Bengali, whatever it will be. So we'll do that. It's a nice idea. You want to move the camera closer if it looks better. So we'll start with the English song then on Buddha. You know, there is a well-known Buddhist mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. So this is a little song based on that mantra. There is a treasure deep in your heart. There is a refuge deep in your heart. Be humble and you will see the jewel in your heart. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. The abode of peace deep in your soul, the highest wisdom deep in your soul. Be gentle and you will find the jewel in your soul. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Bliss and fulfillment deep in your heart, joy without limits deep in your heart. Be selfless and you will see the jewel in your heart. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Unity of vision deep in your soul, true understanding deep in your soul. Beloved, and you will find the jewel in your soul. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. The light is shining deep in your heart, absolute stillness deep in your heart. Surrender and you will see the jewel in your heart, the jewel in your heart, the jewel in your heart. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. The second song is based on, it's just a mantra, Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya. Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya. Om Namo Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya Om Namo Amitabhaya Buddhaya Dharmaya Sanghaya
Thank you, Swamiji, for that very, very beautiful rendition on Bhagwan Buddha. Our next speaker is Swami Isha Dhyananandaji. Swami Isha Dhyananandaji is the Assistant Minister of the Vedanta Society of Sacramento since August 2017. Swamiji was initiated by Swami Atmasthanandaji and joined the Ramakrishna Order in 2002. He received his final monastic vows from his guru in 2012. Swamiji served at the Belur Mutt headquarters office till 2013, following which he was posted as the treasurer of the Jamshedpur branch of the Ramakrishna Mission till 2017. Swamiji has contributed articles to various journals of the Ramakrishna Order. Today, Swami Isha Dhyananandaji will share his thoughts on Adi Shankaracharya. Please welcome Swami Isha Dhyananandaji.
My respectful pranams to all the revered Swamijis. All of them are very, very senior to me. And also my love and best wishes to the devotees who are attending this online retreat. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to all of you. As you can see, my background is Acharya Shankara, who is in our ashrama. We have a garden of saints where we have the statues shrines dedicated to different divine incarnations. One among them is Shankara's. So this is my favorite background. And it is good to have it today. So let me start with Pranam mantra to Acharya Shankara. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. I salute the compassionate award of the Vedas, Smritis, and Puranas, known as Shankar Bhagavat Pada, who makes the world auspicious. So all of us know that Acharya Shankara is respected and revered by all the philosophers, spiritual seekers, and scholars of not only India, but throughout the world. His commentaries on the triple canonical texts of Vedanta, the Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita, have astonished and commanded respect from the philosophers, scholars, and spiritual seeker. The best tribute is believed. It is believed that the best tribute to Shankara's commentary has been given by another versatile scholar, Bachasmati Mishra, in Bhamati. Bhamati is the commentary on Shankaracharya's commentary on Brahma Sutras. In his introduction to that Bhamati, Bachasmati Mishra says that Natva Vishuddha Vijnanam Shankaram Karunanidhim Bhashyam Prasanna Gambhiram Tat Pranitam Vibhajyate. So these two words, Prasanna Gambhiram, Acharya Shankara's commentary is lucid, at the same time profound. This has become popular among the scholars while describing Acharya Shankara's commentary, lucid and profound. That is what we find when we read Acharya Shankara's commentaries and compare with any other commentaries. We find that Acharya Shankara's brilliance, he is brilliant to be sure, but his brilliance is that of a Brahmagyani, a sage, one who had enlightened consciousness. When a person goes to the source of all intelligence and is constantly in touch with that, their intelligence exhibits a rare type of brilliance. And that is what we find in Acharya Shankara's commentaries. It is not only sophisticated philosophy or sophistry or intellectual gymnasium or polemics that appeal to us, but a rare type of brilliance, which is the result of his spiritual illumination. The Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, let us not forget, these are the verses which are outpouring of illumined souls, illumined seers and teachers, and none but an illumined seer can dig deep into them, going beyond their semantic layer. And without that spiritual illumination, Acharya Shankara could not have unveiled the mystical significance of the Upanishad or Gita verses. Mere scholars can only deal with the meanings of the words, their grammar, or different intricacies in philosophy, cannot bring out the deep mystical significance of those verses, for which one needs spiritual brilliance. That we find in Acharya Shankara. His spiritual insights are no doubt could be found in abundance in his minor works like the Prakarana Granthas, the primers like Viveka Churamani, Upadesha Sahasri, Aparoksha Anubhuti, or even in his hymns like Dakshinamurti Stotram, Bhaja Govindam. These are full of spiritual insights. But his commentaries too, one might think that Acharya Shankara's commentaries are only philosophical in nature, but it is not so. Here and there, scattered through his commentaries, we find rare spiritual insights which we don't get anywhere else. And frankly speaking, had Acharya not been commented on those verses, had not brought out the deep significance of those verses, we would have never known the real purport of those Upanishad or Gita verses. Today, as a sample, just as an example, I would like to speak on Acharya Shankara's one particular spiritual insight, which is very important for all spiritual seekers. We are, after all sadhakas. We are mostly concerned with spiritual life. Philosophy is, of course, the foundation, but what concerns us most is our spiritual life as sadhaka. So only one spiritual insight, and that is what? That is, what is the need of a teacher in our spiritual life? This is probably the first thing we need in spiritual life. We need a guide, an able guide, a teacher. According to Acharya, when I say Acharya, I mean Acharya Shankara. According to Acharya, an aspirant for self-realization, Atma Jnana or Brahma Jnana, should resort to a teacher. The biographers of Acharya mentions that Acharya himself sought out a teacher on the banks of river Narmada. Govindapada. There is a place called Omkareshwar on the bank of river Narmada, which I have seen and visited. You can see the cave where Acharya Shankara was instructed by his guru, Govindapada. And that was in accordance with the Vedantic tradition. The first thing you need is a teacher, a guide. That is why we find Acharya Shankara's commentaries, in his commentaries, here and there, now and then, Acharya Shankara brings out this point, makes this point explicit for us. What is the need of a teacher? In the first Mundaka, first chapter of Mundaka Upanishad, there comes a verse. In the second chapter, in the first section of Mundaka, in the second chapter, mantra number 12, there it is said, let a seeker who has had enough in the world, who has seen through the vanities of the world, such a seeker who wants to acquire the knowledge of the eternal should approach a teacher or preceptor alone who is versed in the Shastra. This is important. Why? It will be clear. The mantra goes like this: pariksholokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedo mayat na asti akritah kritena tad vigyanartham sa gurum eva adigachet samitpanihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. Here in this mantra, there is one very intriguing word, which is gurum eva. Gurum eva. Eva means for sure, for sure. So why Gurum eva should go to a guru alone, to none other, to no one else? So in his commentary, Shankaracharya makes a very significant remark. In his commentary on this mantra, he says the emphasis in the teacher alone, that is Gurum eva, implies that an aspirant should not seek the knowledge of Brahman independently, even though they are versed in the scriptures, even though they themselves may be scholar, they understand every bit of the shastras, of the scripture, but when it comes to seeking that knowledge for enlightenment, they should not do it independently. Shastrogyopi satantreno brahmagyano anneshanam na kuryat iti etat gurum eva iti avadharana phalam. Shankaracharya makes it explicit for us that the word gurum eva, verily the guru, has been used in this mantra so that even a scholar should not go after Brahmagyana, seek Brahmagyana independently. We, in our modern world, try to master everything with our do-it-yourself kit, DIY, as we call it. And it is all right for empirical things, but search for the highest truth cannot be done like that. It is not a DIY project, because what we are seeking in Brahmagyana is not objective something. It is the subject hidden behind many veils of false notions, layers of wrong understanding, mistaken identities, or non-recognition. So a teacher who is established in the truth should be approached with humility and a spirit of service for receiving the necessary guidance. And we find in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that when such a teacher is approached properly, they will definitely guide you to that highest truth. May you gain that knowledge by offering your respect, by service, and by proper inquiry. The wise one will impart that knowledge to you. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse number 34. Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. For Jnana Yoga, we need guru. We need guidance. The question is why we need a guru. We can understand it in this way. Suppose I want to see my own face. What should I do? No amount of effort at looking outside will help me. We need a mirror to see my face. That is why they call Shastra Darpanam. Shastra, the Upanishads, the Gita, they are like mirror. They tell us they deals with the subject of self, because other books do not deal with self. All other books deal only with external world. They are all about objective sciences. But here I am interested not in anything objective, but I am interested in seeing, knowing myself, who am I? And for that, I need the help of a mirror. Scripture, the Upanishads are the verbal mirror. But again, mirror itself is not enough. We need to know how to hold the mirror properly. If we cannot hold the mirror properly, we won't get a right reflection of our face. Secondly, sometimes if there is dust on the mirror, then also we'll have a distorted reflection of our face on the mirror. So that is why if we try to read and understand the scriptures on our own, there are doubts, there are dust of not understanding properly, incomplete understanding, erroneous understanding of the scriptures. That is why we need a guide who would tell us, teach us how to hold the mirror, and also will clear the dust of doubts. So we need teacher. That is what Acharya Shankara mentions. Someone may say that there are some examples of people who have attained that knowledge, who have attained illumination even without a teacher, even without a guidance. To such question, we should remember that those are exceptions. An exception is not a general rule. Exception is exception. The general rule is to know who we are, we need a guru like what Acharya Shankara says, one who will tell us. And from Acharya Shankara's life also, we see that there should be two qualities in the teacher. How to find a good teacher? That one is the teacher has got the knowledge. Secondly, they can communicate well. Only one of them is not sufficient. That is why what we find in Acharya Shankara, he had that knowledge and he could communicate well depending upon whom he is dealing with. That is very important for a teacher. Now, one question, how the teacher got the knowledge? Shankaracharya would point out, in fact, the entire Vedantic tradition would point out that the teacher received the knowledge from a living tradition, a parampara, a lineage which has produced many great saints. This is one background check for the seekers. When we are seeking, reaching out, when we are looking for a teacher, what we should really look for. And one of the background checks should be whether the teacher belongs to a living tradition, a lineage which has produced many great saints. In his Gita commentary on verse number 2 of chapter 13, Shankara says that one who does not have these, one who does not belong to a living tradition, a sampradaya, even if such a person is great scholar, but if they don't belong to a living tradition, a lineage, avoid that person. This is very strong comment Acharya says. He says, Tasmat asampradayobit sarvo shastravrid api murkhavat eva upakshaniyaha. Therefore, asampradayobit, one who does not belong to a living tradition, sarva shastravrid api, even they are versed in all the scriptures, but should be upekshaniyaha, should be considered, ignored, as if they don't know anything. That is the importance of belonging to a tradition. We find that Sri Ramakrishna also says the same thing. He says, can a man learn to feel another person's pulse in one day? They must go about with a physician for many days. Only then they can distinguish the different pulses. They must be in the company of those with whom the examination of the pulse have become a regular profession. In other words, what we call internship. No matter what you have studied in your 4 years or 5 years, you have to do internship. You have to move. You have to stay with people who are master of the field. That is what Acharya Shankara mentions. So we get 2 insights about the need of a teacher, that even if someone is scholar, should not venture into Atmagana independently. They should resort to a teacher. Secondly, how to spot a good teacher is, the good teacher is one, the first thing, that they belong to a living tradition, a tradition which has produced many saints over the years, and the tradition is still living. So these are the 2 insights about the need of a guru, need of a teacher, need of a guide in the life of a seeker. There are many, many such insights we find in the commentaries of Acharya Shankara's. And frankly speaking, the beauty of Acharya's commentary, to me especially, is coming across such spiritual insights now and then. In the process of commenting upon, in the process of breaking down the verses of Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad for us, once in a while, the spiritual brilliance of Acharya Shankara shines forth through these spiritual insights. In fact, in our order, in the Ramakrishna order, we are all encouraged to read Sanskrit, to learn Sanskrit. Why? They say, so that we can understand Acharya's commentary. Not to become scholar on Sanskrit, but only to understand Acharya Shankara's commentary, so that we don't miss out on his many spiritual insights, which are unfortunately lost in translation. And as sadhaka, as seeker, that is very important for us to enrich our spiritual life with the spiritual insights of Acharya Shankara. Students of Vedanta must learn to receive from Acharya Shankara the spiritual heritage of Vedanta as well as the philosophical heritage of Vedanta. Because in Vedanta, realization and metaphysics are not divorced from each other. They are inseparable. And in Acharya Shankara, we find that great blending of these two aspects, the spiritual brilliance and intellectual brilliance, as we expect it in all philosophers' sage. I started my talk with Vachaspati Mishra's comment on Acharya Shankara's commentary that they are lucid and profound. And why they are lucid and profound? Because they are born from the spiritual insights of Acharya Shankara. We are all grateful to Acharya for sharing those spiritual insights with all the sincere spiritual seekers of the world, which have illumined, which have guided us for many, many centuries and will keep on guiding us, enlightening us for many, many centuries. So let us offer our respectful pranams, salutations to Acharya Shankara for the great work he did. Our salutations to the Guru-disciple lineage, starting with Lord Sadashiva through the medium of Adi Shankaracharya, and continuing to my own immediate teacher, Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmat Acharya Paryantam Bande Guru Paramparam.
Pranam Swamiji, thank you very much.
Yes.
We have a few questions for you. The first question is by Suresh. Swamiji, is the need for knowing many scriptures needed for knowing the highest truth? While in modern time, there is very less time to pursue scriptures, content, and understanding them in right context.
No, many are not needed. One will be sufficient. Anyone, and going deep into that and trying to live up to that is sufficient.
The next question is from Pushpita, Pranam Swamiji. How to elect the Guru? Knowledge, communication, lineage is crystal clear. Could you please also highlight what the Guru would ideally look for in an ideal disciple?
Oh, what a Guru would look to an ideal disciple. Okay. One that was mentioned in what I spoke in the Bhagavad Gita verses. One, the student should be sincere, should be inquirer. Okay. Secondly, should have a certain level of humility to learn. These are the two.
One more question, Swamiji. Last question.
Yes.
From Rakhi Mitra Chakrabarti. Why are there 4 different mutts of 4 disciples of Sankaracharya? They belong to different gotras, different sadhana bhumis. Why is this difference?
Shankaracharya wanted to emphasize or wanted to preserve the 4 Vedic lineage or 4 Vedas. So he entrusted them to these 4 different mathas, which are located at 4 different corners of India. But in essence, all of them have the same goal, the goal of Atma Jnana, Brahma Vidva, but to preserve and maintain different traditions, he started these 4 mathas.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. Those are all the questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Pooja can take it over.
Thank you, Swamiji, and thank you to all the devotees who have asked questions. We will now again hear from Swami Nirakarananda ji on bhajans on Adi Shankaracharya. We also have a comment from Vani Lara for Swami Shatmananda ji and Nirakarananda ji, thanking them for including English songs as well in the bhajans. Thank you.
I got a couple of questions conveyed while Swami Ishadhyananandaji was speaking. And the first question was, what is the meaning of Amitabhaya in the second song? Amitabha means bodhisattva. So it's a name of Buddha, you can say. When you say Namo, Amitabha becomes Amitabhaya. Salutations to Amitabha. In other words, salutations to Buddha. And the second question is, in the first English song, excuse me, what is the meaning of the last line? And it says, Om Mani Padme Hum. So as we explained, it's a Buddhist mantra. And Mani, Om, we know. Then the second word is Mani, which means jewel. It's a Sanskrit word. Then Padme means in the lotus. Hum is another sound, mystical sound pertaining to the mantra. So Om Mani Padme Hum means, loosely translated, was what we said in English, the jewel in the heart. That jewel can be the Atman, it can be Sri Ramakrishna, it can be Holy Mother. But so we were trying to, around this Sanskrit mantra, make a song of the jewel in the heart, Om Mani Padme Hum. So that's the meaning of that line. Now we are going to do, Srinidhi, can you bring me some water, please? We are going to do a nice little song on Shankara. The water is there on the table, please. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I apologize. Young sannyasi, pure and bright, selfless teacher, full of might, roaming freely, far and wide, seekers walking by his side. Shankara Jaya Shankara Jaya Shankara Shankara Jaya Shankara Soham. Giving freely from his mind gems of wisdom to mankind. You are Atman, you are ever free, never touched by misery. Shankara Jaya Shankara Jaya Shankara Shankara Jaya Shankara Soham. The Chandana helped you realize there is no one to despise. Saint and sinner, all the same, all is Brahman, you proclaim. Shankara Jaya Shankara Jaya Shankara Shankara Jaya Shankara Soham. Soham. Now, Nirvana Shatakam, composition by Shankaracharya. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Mano Bhutyaham Karachita Ninaham Nacha Shrutra Jigve Nachakrana Netre Nachavyo na Bhumi na Tejo na Vayos Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Nacha Prana Sangyo Navai Panchavayur Navasapta Dhatur Nava Panchakosha Navat Paripadam Nachopasthapayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Name Dvesharagau Name Lobha तदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभाव न धर्मो न चार्थ न कामो न मोक्षश्चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञ अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मृत्युर्न शङ्क न मे जातिभेद पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यश्चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभूत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न चासङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेयश्चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्
Thank you so much, Swami Nirakaranandaji. If there are any questions for Swamiji related to his bhajans, please type it in the chat box and we will pass it on to Swamiji, who will address it before his next rendition. Our next speaker now is Swami Vimohanandaji. Swami Vimohanandaji is a minister of the Vivekananda Vedanta Society of British Columbia since December 2019. He became a member of the Ramakrishna order at Advaita Ashram in 1988. Initiated by Swami Bhuteshanandaji, Swamiji served in the publication department of Advaita Ashram for over 25 years. He has translated several books into English and Hindi from Bengali, like Life and Teachings of Swami Subodhananda, Enlightening Stories, compilation of letters of Swami Bhuteshanandaji, among others, and has edited over 100 books. Swamiji will share his thoughts on Swami Vivekananda. Please welcome Swami Vimohanandaji.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya
Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharini. My pranams to Swami Ishatmanandji, and I'm very grateful to him that he gave me the opportunity to be present today with you all. And my loving namaskars to all my other monastic brothers who are at present participating in this function. So, Swami Vivekananda, as we all know, he was a gigantic personality and contributed in various ways to the enrichment of the world culture. His writings and speeches cover almost all aspects of life, but his fundamental message and teaching, like other teachers, is that we have to regain our spiritual heritage, which we seem to have lost, and become aware of our true nature. So it can be said that Swamiji spent his whole life teaching this ultimate knowledge, by knowing which everything becomes known, by knowing which all our problems are solved once and for all, forever and ever and ever. So in the little time we have today, we can discuss the ideal he represented in the briefest possible way. I will base my talk upon a letter which he wrote to Sister Nivedita from London on 7 June 1896. The very first line which Swamiji writes in this letter is, "My ideal can be put in a few words, and that is to preach unto mankind their divinity and how to make it manifest in every moment of his life." Every moment of life. This is what Swami Vivekananda himself says is the ideal he represents. Now see this statement, to preach unto mankind their divinity. This is a tremendous statement. We are really divine. A tremendous declaration. Very hard to believe, in fact, because we are so much conscious of our being limited beings that even to imagine this fact is difficult for us. And imagine the effect which must have been produced when he announced this in the Parliament of Religions, where there were Westerners mostly present. So I'll just quote a person who was there, and I will just quote his reminiscences. Describing the effect which Swamiji's statement had, he says, "There was a passage towards the end in which I can still hear the ring of his voice and feel the silence of the crowd, almost as if shocked. The audience could be taken as one in assuming that there had been a fall of man resulting in a state of original sin. But what is this speaker saying? I hear his emphatic rebuke. Call men sinners. It is a sin to call men sinners." Through the silence, I felt something like a gasp running through the hall as the audience waited for the affirmation which must follow this blow. What his following words were, I cannot recall with the same verbal clarity. They carried the message that in all men there is that divine essence, undivided and eternal. Reality is one, and that one, which is Brahman, constitutes the central being in each one of us. This is just a glimpse of the effect Swamiji created when he made this tremendous declaration at the Parliament of Religions. And if we can really imbibe this one teaching, most important teaching of his, we will also grasp at its tremendous significance. We are not this limited psychophysical being, not a part of this, as Swamiji calls it, this hideous chimerical existence where we are kicked about like a football by every wind that blows. That is our condition, present condition. Hideous, Swamiji calls it. We are susceptible to every little thing, every little change. We can't help it. We are slaves of nature. Pain in the tooth, we have to go to the run to the dentist. Pain in the stomach, we have to go to a doctor. We can't help it. So we, inhibiting this limited physical body and suffering through so many agonies, facing innumerable problems, we are actually completely lost in a labyrinth from which no escape seems possible. If we just meditate upon this, our condition, in all those who have gone to Lucknow in India know that there is a Bhul Bhulaiya, there's a big maze. If you go there, you are lost. Without a guide, it is impossible to escape. It is said that many people who have tried, they died there ultimately because they could not find their way out. Because every passage looks the same. Every passage looks the same. You cannot find your way out. So the world is like that. We are experiencing the same thing over and over again. We are caught in this maze. We are again and again throwing ourselves into enjoyments, hoping to find satisfaction. But every time we fail in doing so. And regarding the story of each person's life, Swamiji says, every child is a born optimist. He dreams golden dreams. In youth, he becomes still more optimistic. It is hard for a young man to believe that there is such a thing as death, such a thing as defeat and degradation. Old age comes, and life is a mass of ruins. Dreams have vanished into the air, and the man becomes a pessimist. So this is the fate of nearly each ordinary person in the world. In old age, he finds nothing to hold on to, nothing to cling on to, no support. Because everything which he has got, which he had got, he had come and gone, come and gone. In the end, leaving him empty-handed. So Swamiji says that who amongst us has not wondered at some time, those who have gained sufficient maturity, who has not wondered that what is the goal of life? Is this world the goal of life, nothing more? Are we to be just what we are, nothing more? Is man to be a machine which runs smoothly without a hitch anywhere? Are all the sufferings he experiences today all that can he have? Doesn't he want anything more? Of course, we want something more. We want something much, much more. But the problem is we don't know how to get it. So ordinary people, what do we see? Even knowing very well what is to be their inevitable fate, we continue to lead our lives in the same manner. Going after the world, running after the world, running after these fleeting pleasures, running after these small loves and attachments. Because what else is there? If you ask any ordinary person that there is old age and death, there is sickness, he will say, yeah, that is there, but what can be done? What is the way out? So this is the way out. This, the immortal message which has been taught by our rishis and saints all through the ages, this is the way out. This is the actually only way out. What is that? That we are actually divine. Children of immortal bliss. That is how Swamiji addressed the audience in the parliament of religions. That bliss, which doesn't even have a trace of misery, a trace of suffering, we are children of that, we are heirs to that. Just imagine what this statement means. So a new hope, a new strength, a new assurance will come much more certain than this limited world can give us if we can really imbibe this one teaching and let it enter our hearts, let it enter our beings, and try to realize it with all our energy. So in the Gita, it is said that Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swalpamapi, only a little of this dharma is enough to save us from the great fear of this world. See, ultimate realization, supreme knowledge is far away. It takes a lot of time, lot of labor. We are just beginners on the path. That may be far away, no problem. But even a little of this message of hope gives us tremendous relief from the suffering which we are experiencing nearly every moment of our life. So I will just quote a lady who had listened to Swami Vivekananda in USA. They were husband and wife. So it's so inspiring. She says, when they heard Swami Vivekananda, I quote her, "We felt ourselves lifted up into an atmosphere so rarefied, so vital, so wonderful, that we sat spellbound and almost breathless to the end of the lecture. When it was over, we went out with a new courage, new hope, new strength, new faith to meet life's daily vicissitudes. And for months afterwards, we went to hear Swami Vivekananda explain the old religion and to gather from his wonderful mind jewels of truth and thoughts of helpfulness and strength. It was that terrible winter of financial disasters when banks failed and stocks went down like broken balloons, and businessmen walked through the dark valleys of despair, and the whole world seemed topsy-turvy. Sometimes, after sleepless nights of worry and anxiety, the man means the lady's husband, the man would go with me to hear the Swami lecture, and then he would come out into the winter gloom and walk down the street smiling and say, "It is all right. There is nothing to worry over." And I would go back to my own duties and pleasures with the same uplifted sense of soul and enlarged vision. So these people, I doubt if they were knowers of Brahman or they were highly spiritual right from the start. Of course, they must have been great because they got the opportunity to see Swami Vivekananda and hear him. That's true. But they might not have realized the ultimate knowledge. But see what hope and assurance they got. Even in such a bad times as those. And I will quote one great disciple of Swamiji, Swami Shuddhanandaji Maharaj. He also says the same thing. He says, "Whenever my heart gets filled with despondency, I seem to hear Swamiji, his face suffused with bliss, repeating in a sonorous voice the message of hope from the Upanishads. Hear ye, children of immortal bliss, even ye that reside in higher spheres, I have found the Ancient One, who is beyond all darkness, all delusion. Knowing him alone, you shall be saved from death over again." So this one message of Swamiji is sufficient to change our whole life. If we but have faith, if we are ready to receive it in its true sense, if we are ready to mold our lives according to this teaching. If we sincerely believe in this, it will create a revolution in our mind, and it is bound to change our whole life towards the better. So this is the fundamental thing which Swamiji said again and again, emphasized over and over again. And the next thing, the next line of this letter, he says that one idea that I see clear as daylight is that misery is caused by ignorance and nothing else. Nothing else at all. Avidya or ignorance is the cause of all our miseries. Explaining this, Swamiji himself says the 5 pains which are mentioned in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali: ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to life. First comes egoism. So Swamiji says these are the 5 pains, the 5-fold tie that binds us down, of which ignorance is the cause, and the other 4, its effects. So all the miseries we experience have been included in these 5 terms, and ignorance is the root cause. So explaining this, Swamiji says that is the only cause of our misery. What else can make us miserable? The nature of the soul is eternal bliss. What can make it sorrowful except ignorance, hallucination, and delusion? All pain of the soul is simply delusion. So 2 points we have already got from this letter. First is that we are divine. Second, why don't we realize our divinity? What is the obstacle? The obstacle is the only cause which is the responsible for all our problems is ignorance. Now comes the question, how can we remove this ignorance? So we come to another line of this letter. Swamiji says, religion of the world have become lifeless mockeries. What the world wants is character. Character. See, this divinity is in us. We are divine, that is true. But Swamiji says each soul is potentially divine. Potentially, mind you. Like a seed. Seed contains a tree, but in a potential form. Till it is manifested, it is of no use. It cannot give us shade. It cannot give us fruits and flowers. Similarly, till our divinity is actually manifested, we are as good as limited human beings, prone to all kinds of sufferings. How to manifest this divinity now? Through the formation of our character. Swami Vivekananda writes to Raja Maharaj, neither money pays, nor name, nor fame, nor learning. It is character that can cleave through adamantine walls of difficulties. And what is the central feature of this character of a spiritual man? What is the most important feature? Swamiji says, unselfishness. Unselfishness. Love, truth, and unselfishness, he says, are not merely moral figures of speech, but they form our highest ideal, because in them lies such a manifestation of power. Through unselfish work, thoughts, and deeds, that power will manifest. Explaining this, Swamiji says, all outgoing energy following a selfish motive is frittered away. It will not cause power to return to you. But if restrained, it will result in a development of power. This self-control will tend to produce a mighty will, a character which makes a Christ or a Buddha. So 3 things. First, we are divine. Second, why can't we realize our divinity? Because of ignorance. Third, how to manifest this divinity? Through the development of our character. And the last, one of the last lines of this small letter, Swamiji says, what should we do now? What is our duty then? He says, let us call and call till the sleeping gods awake, till the God within answers to this call. What more is in life? What greater work? So let us call and call, he says. It will not happen in a day, mind you. It's very difficult, no doubt it is difficult. But he says call and call means let us persevere. Let us cheerfully struggle. It's not the work of a day. Swamiji says the will has to be strengthened by slow, continuous and persevering drill. It's a long process, but as we know, his clarion call, arise, awake and don't stop. Don't stop till you reach. Don't take a step backward. Then he says, what more in life? What more is there in life? This is very important, you see. Except this, there is nothing worth achieving in life, nothing worth getting. Why? Because he says everything else on this side, it is gone. It is vanishing every day. The beautiful, hopeful young person of today is the veteran of tomorrow. Hopes and joys and pleasures will die like blossoms with tomorrow's frost. This is one side. On the other, what is there? He says, other side, there are great charms of conquest. Victories over all the ills of life. Victory over life itself, the conquest of the universe. On that side, men can stand. Those who dare therefore to struggle after victory for truth, for religion, are in the right way. And that is what the Vedas preach. Be not in despair. The way is very difficult, but arise, awake and find the ideal, the goal. So in this short letter, Swamiji has said so many things, and especially this age, the path which he learned from his master Sri Ramakrishna, he proposed for this page, the special spiritual discipline for this age. He says, worship of God in man. He says, look upon every man, woman, and everyone as God. You cannot help anyone. You can only serve. Serve the children of the Lord. Serve the Lord himself if you have the privilege. Do it only as a worship. Swamiji says, look upon this as a great opportunity. So this can be described as the special path for this age, which will help us to form our character and regain our true spiritual nature. So as it has been beautifully said in a Sanskrit verse, this new age, let this be the age of Vivekananda. Let the spirit of service permeate our hearts. And it says, let us be full of Ananda in the bliss itself. The beautiful verse I will conclude by quoting just the beginning of this beautiful hymn in Sanskrit. Bhuvana mandale navayugamudayatu Bhuvana mandale navayugamudayatu sada vivekanandamayam suvivekamayam swanandamayam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Pranams and thank you, Maharaj. We have a few questions for you based on the talk. First question is by Suresh. Why the path to get rid of ignorance has to be very long? If it takes long time, more than the life, how is the commitment to truth be continued?
Well, the path is long or short depending on where we stand. See, if I'm traveling from Vancouver to Chicago, how long the travel will take will depend on where I stand. If I have already progressed till say, Boston or some other place, then it won't take much time. But for the average person, it takes a long time because his ignorance is so deep that he has to struggle a lot to regain his divine nature. And about the second part of the question, there is no holiday in this life. We have to keep on pursuing. It's a very tough life. It is said to be as hard as walking on the edge of a razor. So if we say that to hold our vows, to keep to our determination for such a long time is not possible, then I think spiritual life is not for us. This is not for everybody, you see.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is by Junu Chatterjee. Thank you and Pranam Maharaj for this beautiful talk. How to encourage young generation to read and try to know about Swamiji in this distracting society and the present world? How can then be educated? How can they be educated about the real priorities? If we cannot change them, how can we have a better world with people of character?
See, I think we shouldn't worry too much about changing the world right now. We say in the modern time, modern society, this is happening, that is happening. But if we study the history of the world, this has been happening through eternity. There is just a rise and fall. And the best way of inspiring the youth is, of course, give them literature of Swamiji, let them hear about Swamiji, these types of conferences. And the best way is to set before them an example with our own lives. That is the most efficient way, but that is the most difficult to achieve. So we should first, I think, try to form our character, and rather than stressing on changing the whole world, we should try to serve everybody, purify our minds. Then God will Himself will make our minds and body instruments through which He will do His work.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question is from Charles Feldman. How does unselfishness look like for a householder?
It looks like the same for a householder as a monk. Yeah. Outwardly, we are all doing the same duties. Yeah. In the monk also, when I was at Advaita Ashrama, we are also sitting at the computer. We were also working. We were also talking, interacting with the devotees. We are not in a cave or something. Especially this ideal which Swamiji has said before us, that being in the world but not of it. So this does not leave a very big gap between the householders and the monks as such. So we, as householders, we have to do also our duties. So the thing is that a householder lives with his relatives, wife, children, etc. So Swamiji says, as I said in conclusion, the best way is to look upon every man, woman as God. That way, two things happen. First, our attachment to others reduces. And secondly, when we serve them with this attitude, it becomes a spiritual discipline.
Next question by Mahavirji. Could you kindly repeat the date of the letter to Sister Nivedita?
Yeah, I'll just tell you. That is 7th June 1896, written from London.
And next question is by Amitesh. How can we strengthen our willpower, Pranam Maharaj?
Yeah, willpower is the same process is there, you see. It's a long, continuous process. Go on practicing. There are two sides, positive side and negative side. Positive side is increase our love for this ideal, noble ideal, represented by God. So develop love for God, develop love for everything that is good. Be charitable, noble, generous, kind, truthful. That is a positive side. Negative side is leave the world and its attractions as much as possible. Living means not going into a cave, mind you. Living means giving up selfishness, giving up our attachments. So when these two are practiced side by side, developing love for everything which is noble and leaving all that is negative, slowly our will grows through that self-control. When we don't indulge ourselves in anything which we should not do, and at the same time strengthen our mind by practicing spiritual disciplines, slowly our willpower grows.
Thank you, Swamiji. Those are all the questions we have for you.
Thank you so much.
Over to Pooja.
Pranams and thank you, Maharaj. And thank you to all the devotees for your questions. We will now have our last set of bhajans by Swami Nirakarananda ji.
We are going to do one song in English. It's not on Swamiji, but is the kind of song he would have liked because it compares the soul to a free bird in the sky. So as if the Atman is a bird flying freely in the sky. The kind of ideas that Swamiji used to love. This is a well-known American song. The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with you, nor leaves your sight, and I am yours, I rest in you, Great Spirit, come, rest in me too. The ends of earth are in your hand, the seas dark, deep, and far off land, and I am yours, I rest in you, Great Spirit, come, rest in me too. In secret depths you knit my frame, before my birth you spoke my name. Each secret thought is known to you, the path I walk my whole life through, the lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with you, nor leaves your sight, and I am yours, I rest in you, Great Spirit, come, rest in me too, and I am yours, I rest in you, Great Spirit, come, rest in me too. See, our last song is on Swamiji, a song by Swami Chandikananda, Jaya Vireshwara Viveka Bhaskara. Jaya Vireshwara Viveka Bhaskara, Jaya Jaya Shri Vivekananda, Indunibhanana Sundara Lochana, Indunibhanana Sundara Lochana, Vishwamanavachira Jaya Vireshwara Viveka Bhaskara, Jaya Jaya Shri Vivekananda. Prema dhala dhala kanti suvimala, Prema dhala dhala kanti suvimala, Adhigata veda vedanta. Prema dhala dhala kanti suvimala, Adhigata veda vedanta. Tyagati ticha tapasya ujvala, Tyagati ticha tapasya ujvala, Chitta niramala shanta. Tyagati ticha tapasya ujvala, Chitta niramala shanta. Jaya Vireshwara Viveka Bhaskara, Jaya Jaya Shri Vivekananda. Karma Bhakti Jnana Trishula Dharana, Karma Bhakti Jnana Trishula Dharana, Chedana Jiva Mukha Bandha. Karma Bhakti Jnana Trishula Dharana, Chedana Jiva Mukha Bandha. Brahma Parayana Namo Narayana, Brahma Parayana Namo Narayana, Dehi Dehi Charanaravinda. Brahma Parayana Namo Narayana, Dehi Dehi Charanaravinda. Jaya Vireshwara Viveka Bhaskara, Jaya Jaya Shri Vivekananda. Indunibhanana Sundara Lochana, Indunibhanana Sundara Lochana,
Thank you, and pranams to Swami Nirakarananda ji. And on behalf of all the devotees who are currently muted, we want to offer our pranams to all the Swamijis in this session today, and thank you for sharing your thoughts today. We will now hear from Vivekananda Vedanta Society of Chicago, our own center, Swami Vardhananda ji, who will offer concluding remarks. Actually, while Swamiji is unmuting himself, if Swami Vimohananda ji is still on, Maharaj, there was one question from a devotee asking if there was one book on Swami Vivekananda that you'd recommend, what would that book be?
Well, if it is to the youth, then we've got a very nice compilation by Advaita Ashrama to the youth of India. I think that is the name. So, of course, it is meant for all the youth. It depends upon the standing in life, you see, of that person. For the youth, that is a very good book. And if someone is slightly more mature, if he wants all the 4 yogas of Swamiji in a concise form, a wonderful book, wonderful compilation, What Religion Is. All the 4 yogas are given in a concise form, and the essential parts have been taken very beautifully. I think these 2 would be a good beginning.
Okay, thank you, Swamiji. Now, Vardhananda ji, if you could please unmute yourself.
Hello, Pooja.
Yes, Swamiji, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Pooja. So I'd like to express our deep gratitude to all the 3 Swamis who gave talks today. Of all the talks, they were both very informative, but also very inspiring. This whole retreat, I felt, it created a mood, a feeling for it that is very special. And I'd like to not only thank Swami, but also thank all the people who attended it. Because of COVID, we've had to do it virtually online, but this is not necessarily a bad thing because we find we're reaching many more people than we would normally, and people they can listen in the comfort of their own home. They don't have to drive 100 miles, to come to their trip. So it's actually has worked out fairly well. We sometimes people all over the world have been listening. So these Swami Satya Mayananda, he told us about the Buddha. And Swami Shadvananda, he told about the Shankara and Swami Vimohananda, Swami Vivekananda. These were 3 great spiritual teachers in human history. Now, normally in history, they concern themselves with the great kings and conquerors and the powerful men in the world. But actually, the most powerful men in human history have been the great spiritual teachers like Christ and Buddha and so on. You read about Caesar, say, oh, yes, he was a great person. But the lives of Buddha and Shankara and Christ and Ramakrishna, these have literally inspired people to shape their lives, to guide them for centuries. It's affected the lives of millions of people. And Swami Vivekananda has said that the incarnations, the spiritual teachers that we hear about are very small in number. He said, always in the world there have been men of God realization existed that we don't even know they exist. We never even heard of them. But he said, because of these spiritual people, these realized souls, because of that, all of mankind has been uplifted. He said, otherwise we would have descended to the level of the animals. The idea of even being aware that there's something higher just doesn't occur to a person unless you get the teaching somewhere. And the spiritual teachers, they don't just give information. They don't just say, oh, this is the philosophy, this is what you should do, but they actually create a path for the devotee. When we look at the spiritual teaching and all said, oh, yes, I get there, then we realize, there's so many obstacles and problems. Well, the Buddha, the Shankara, Swami Vivekananda, they have like opened up a path that's made it easier. And one particular mystic, modern mystic, David Hawkins, has said that in the present time, it's actually 1,000 times easier to attain realization than it has been in the past. And largely Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, others teachers. But this is the thing, is that these spiritual teachers, they're known in Buddhism, they're called Tathagatas, pathfinders. They not only find a path, but they also like cut through the jungle of obstacles and things, and they prepare a path which is like a smooth road for everybody else to follow along. And as Shamak said, they're like the great boat that can carry 1,000 people along. And the ordinary person, maybe if we can just save ourselves, okay, we're lucky. But the Buddha, when he left the palace, when he went out to seek the truth, he didn't do it for his own sake. He did it for all of humanity. And this is why Swami Vivekananda has said he was the greatest man who ever lived, the greatest example of karma yoga. And in this modern age, Swami Vivekananda, particularly at the Parliament of Religions, he gave these teachings that he got from from Shama Krishna. One was the harmony of religions. That throughout human history, the religions have been a source of conflict. All religions teach peace and brotherhood, but yet some of the worst bloodshed has come from religion, from the religious conflicts. So he taught not only harmony of religions, but he also brought, and this was something new in America, something nobody was ever aware of the divinity within man, of the presence of God within. And he said this was the whole purpose of life, was to realize that divine presence within yourself and then to manifest it in your daily life, in all your actions. And then all your actions become blessed and a blessing to everyone else. People ask you, how can I help the world? How can I make things better? The greatest service you can be to the world is to seek spiritual realization, because the state of the world is actually just the sum total of the state of consciousness of all the people in the world. And what we got as the world, that's like the result. Anybody who gets some light, that affects all the consciousness of all humanity and has an uplifting effect on human consciousness. So in Hinduism, when they speak of the golden age or the perfect age, they call it the Satya Yuga, the age of truth, the age in which people become aware of the truth of their own nature. And this is, as Buddha pointed out, and others, that the whole source of all our problems is ignorance. We're divine children of immortal bliss. We're children of God, but we've forgotten it. And so we're lost, wandering around in this world. And these great spiritual teachers, they show the way. And they not only show the way, but they prepare a path by which we can attain it. So I thank all these talks were very, very good. I really enjoyed them. They were just very nice. And I thank you all, and I thank everybody who was able to come here for this. And this has worked out very well. I think, like I said, even though we had to do it online virtually, still it actually works out pretty well. So I thank you all, and puja, and thank you. And I think Pooja and Varsha Kishore and the people who work, this technically this has been like flawless. I mean, no problems at all. I have gone to programs where the first 15 minutes they spend fuddling around with the things, and so it's been very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji. We've had a few requests for people asking about donation. Since this is a free program, we've put the link to online donation in the chat window. You can also go to chicagovedanta.org to make your donation if you'd like to donate for this program. Our last concluding remark now, we'd like to invite Swami Ishatmanandaji.
I just like to say, really, I thank you for your patience. That I can observe that all of you are sitting right tight from 11 o'clock, and it is 1:30. We were planning up to 1, but usually it goes Indian time, so it goes little here. So this is really wonderful. And I thank you, my brothers. You have spoken so well. As Varadanandaji Maharaj was telling, each and everyone was giving some new insight. And friends, devotees, if you like to visit our Ganges Retreat Center, slowly we are opening up. You can write to me and we can organize in such a way that there'll be no many people, but you can come, spend some time, quiet time for meditation, for your prayer, for your personal spiritual life. So you're most welcome to visit our Ganges Retreat. You can visit the Homar Glen too. There is no problem, but you know that the rooms are limited. Please write to us, then we can accommodate you here too. And maybe at the end of this year, we can welcome you to Home of Harmony in Chicago, which is now under construction, is going on, renovations are going on. Thank you, friends. Let us say Jai 3 times before we conclude. Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Dev Ki Jai, Jai Mahamai Ki Jai, Jai Swamiji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you.